Welcome everyone. It's so great to see so many deputies who've made the effort to be here today, and also of course we have a large number of our deputies online as well. Very pleased to see you all here. This has been part of a most amazing weekend, I have to say. And a little bit about that, a bit more about that in a minute. But first of all, just to thank very much the Edinburgh Hebrew congregation. We're here in the shul, and they've been amazing hosts to us. So particularly Rabbi David Rose, thank you so much for your hospitality. For Matthew, for Arnold, for Hilary, everyone here has been fantastic. We've not gone hungry at all, nor wanted for a wee dram. So there's no whiskey on the table, which is actually a relief after the whiskey tasting last night. So it's fantastic, and we also, of course, went to see yesterday, again thanks to Edward, the Scottish Parliament as well, which was a most amazing building, I must say. And of course, as we understand, there's likely to be even more devolution under the incoming administration. So it'll be interesting to see what that has in store for all of us. I'd also like to thank Rabbi Mark Solomon as well, and Sukkot Shalom, who also provided a considerable hospitality as well to many of our deputies. I've been very pleased. I did a mini shul crawl on Friday night, covering both Sukkot Shalom and Edinburgh Hebrew congregation. So it's great, really, to see such a thriving community, and with so much happening here. It's a real joy to behold. And as I mentioned yesterday over lunch, for those who were here, it's a moment where we do have in mind, I won't ask us all to sing it again, but Hinei Matov Ma'anayim Shevet Takim Gam Yachad, how pleasant it is when siblings come together. And I think that this weekend, this regional plenary demonstrates how important it is for the Board of Deputies to not only reach out, but also to benefit from our exposure to our regional communities as well. And of course, we have a forum as part of this morning's proceedings to explore that a bit further. Without more ado, I'm just going to say some mazel tovs, and some of these will be familiar to people here. So the very first one is to our President and his wife Frances on the birth of their son Theo. Mazel tov. Which, of course, is how I find myself standing here, performing this role. And I'm reliably informed that the President will be reassuming his duties very shortly. Also to Deputy Peter Bayfus on his 80th birthday, to Deputy Dilys Towles on the birth of her new grandson, to Paul and Ruth Hart on their 9th wedding anniversary, then 2 mazel tovs to Flora Frank on the engagement of her granddaughter, or in Israel, to Yaakov, and also on the bar mitzvah of her 2 great-grandsons in Israel. To Mike Mendoza on his recent wedding, to Deputy Sharon Herrera on the birth of her granddaughter, and to Rabbi Daniel Walker, as you'll know, of Heaton Park Synagogue, on the birth of a grandson. Sadly, we do have some condolences. So to past President Jonathan Arkush on the sad passing of his mother, to Deputy Lisa Heath on the sad passing of her father, to Deputy Linda Sharp on the sad loss of her husband Donald, and to the family of past senior Vice President Aubrey Rose on his sad passing. And we wish all of their families a long life, Chaim Arichim. We have a number of new deputies and under 35s. So we have Jack Baldwin, who used to be a member of our staff, who's the new under 35 observer for Northwood and Pinner Liberal Synagogue. Paul Berwin and Adam Wine, deputy and under 35 observer respectively of Leeds, a United Hebrew Congregation. Noah Gross, under 35 for Ballroom and Elstree United Synagogue. Kochav Mechochlin, under 35 observer for Mosaic Liberal Synagogue, Nat Mendelsohn, under 35 observer for Birmingham Progressive Synagogue, Fiona Swedlow and Laura Mullins-Kaplan, deputies for Radlett United Synagogue, David Cooper, who is deputy for Newcastle Reform Synagogue, Jenny Kananov, who is the new deputy for Yachad. It's quite amazing how many new ones we have. So you must be doing something well here. Neve Abgela and Martin Abgela, deputies for Radlett Reform Synagogue. So a large influx of new people for Radlett. Richard Linskell and Eric Silver, deputy, and Bradley Langer, under 35, for Stanmore and Cannons Park United Synagogue. And finally, Adam Rose as an additional deputy for New North London Synagogue. But I do also have some additional under 35s who are especially present here today. So the first one, who's sitting at the back, was already making points of order, Maya Garfield. Welcome. And in addition to Maya, lest she be the only one, we also have Abby, Nadav and Matan Shabu. Welcome. And may this be the first of many plenaries for all of you. We do have a busy agenda today, and we will come into that shortly. But before we do, I just want to make some special thanks. So I mentioned Edward earlier, but really it's been amazing what you've managed to pull together. We've had such a wonderful Shabbat here, and all of this really is down to the motivation and drive and your passion for the Board of Deputies, which I've experienced over many years, and we're so incredibly grateful for that. We do have a small token of our appreciation, and
just arrived.
Which just arrived in time. Maybe come round. And then also, as is so often the case with all of our regional weekends and regional activity, and in many other respects as well, I just want to say a special thanks to Sarah Adavan, for all the enormous effort that you have put in. Sarah, do you mind coming to the front as well? And I think that largely concludes my welcoming remarks. So without more ado, I'm going to hand over to our independent chair, Dame Louise Ellman.
Well, it is wonderful to be here in Edinburgh and to meet such a warm and hospitable community. Before we start the business of the meeting, I must remind you of one or two points. I must remind you of your conduct. You'll be polite and no slander. The meeting won't be live streamed, but it will be recorded, and that will be available in the next few days. And I do remind you, we do have members of the press on this call. And the deputies on Zoom, I remind you all to please make sure your name is there, no iPad 3. And I'd like to encourage first-time speakers, please to speak, and you will be given priority if you want to talk. And I remind also people to remember the accessibility guidelines in the information pack, which means to speak clearly with no hand in front of your mouth if you are on Zoom. And now it gives me very great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Ian Murray, an MP for Edinburgh South and Minister of State jointly in the Department of Culture, Media and Sports and the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. And Ian was a former Secretary of State for Scotland. But there are a number of points about Ian that you may not be aware of, and I'd like to draw to your attention. In the time when I was in Parliament, a number of things happened. And one of those was that there was a general election where the SNP had nearly a clean sweep of MPs in Scotland. And I think Ian was the sole remaining Labour MP in Scotland, which I think says a lot for his popularity and for the respect in which he was held. And I have heard firsthand today, and indeed over the weekend, from Edward and from other members of the community about how highly regarded Ian is in the Jewish community for the work that he does and the support that he gives the community, which is particularly important at this very difficult time. But I'd just like to add one personal anecdote to that. You will know that I was in Parliament for a long time. And in the last few years in which I was in Parliament, of course, we had massive problems with the anti-Semitism that was rampant at that time in the Labour Party, released when Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party, and we fought terrific battles to deal with that. And at that time, Ian was one of the relatively few people in Parliament in the Labour Party who was willing to speak up and to speak out against what was going on. And I remember lots of meetings that I and other MPs who were affected had with Ian, and it does give me great pleasure, Ian, to be able to thank you for that at this forum today, the Board of Deputies of British Jews. So can I say thank you for what you did in 2018 and 2019. Thank you very much. Ian, I'd now like to invite you to address us.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I've been doing a little bit of studying into whether or not I can pronounce things properly, so I should probably start by saying Shalom Aleichem. Have I got that right? Is that okay?
Very good.
Was it throaty? Not bad. Well, nobody's walked out yet, so it must have been okay. But thank you very much indeed. It's a tremendous privilege and pleasure to be here today, not just because I'm a great friend of Edward and the congregation here, but the boundary changes brought the synagogue into the constituency for the first time, which is a great pleasure to have, but also for the way in which the Board of Deputies have come here for this plenary session to Edinburgh, the first time in 20 years, which makes it a very special occasion, not just for the Jewish community here in Edinburgh and in Scotland, but also for everyone who's involved in it. And can I start by returning the thanks and paying tribute to you, Louise, because those were very dark days, not just for our party, but for the country. And the way in which many stood up, led by yourself at those dark times, was a real inspiration to others. And it was easy for me and others not of Jewish faith to come forward and give that support, because we knew it was A, the right thing to do, but B, it was easy to follow your leadership. And I remember all the meetings where there was anger, but there was many tears. And that in itself was a real indication of the problems at that time, hopefully now resolved, but of course not in society, which I'll talk a little bit about today. I was deeply honoured when Edward Green sent the email to say if I would come and speak to you this morning. And it's a great privilege to serve as a Member of Parliament, but this is a very special occasion because gatherings like this really do matter. They matter to me, they matter to Edward and the congregation here, but they matter to the Jewish community and wider faith communities right across the country, because there is a real strain and anxiety for many Jewish people, and this sends a clear message that Jewish communal life in Britain is very strong, it's resilient, and it will not be pushed into the shadows or diminished in any way, and I certainly echo those remarks. Today I want to speak plainly about three things, if I may. Firstly, the value of the Jewish community to our country and to our wonderful city of Edinburgh. I haven't been on a shawl crawl yet, but it sounds good, particularly if Edward's supplying the refreshments in that sense. Secondly, the seriousness of the challenge that we all face with anti-Semitism and indeed intolerance. And third, the action that the government I represent is taking on security, on education, on institutions, and indeed on community cohesion. So let me begin with this very clear message. The Jewish community is an integral, valued and cherished part of British life. That is true here in Edinburgh, it is true across Scotland, and it's true across the whole of the United Kingdom. Jewish people should be able to live openly, safely and proudly as Jews, to worship freely, to gather confidently, to send their children to the school without fear, to wear visible signs of Jewish identity without hesitation, and to participate fully in public life and without intimidation, hostility or concealment. Now, this is not a favour, it is not conditional, it is not negotiable. It's a basic obligation of decent democratic societies and should be here too. And anything less will not and should not be tolerated. But for far too many Jewish people, the opposite is the reality today. We all know that this has not felt like an ordinary time for many Jews. This is a wider malaise around anti-Semitism in too much of our public life, a coarsening of language, a tolerance of conspiracy, a habit of excusing what should be condemned, a willingness to debate Jewish fear instead of listening to it and responding to that. Prejudice becomes dangerous not only when it erupts into headlines, but when it becomes normalised in institutions, normalised on our university campuses, in our online spaces, and in our everyday conversations. That is how hatred embeds itself and why it must be confronted early and confronted consistently. So let me say this as plainly as I can. This government and all reasonable people stand and support the Jewish community. We stand with you in defence of your security, of your dignity, of your freedom, and of your key place in British life. That's the first duty of any government, is to keep its people safe. And that is why the government has significantly increased financial support, the largest investment ever made by any government into the protection of the Jewish community at £58 million. Now, I wish we didn't have to spend a penny of that, but that is the reality. Alongside that, we've committed £18 million a year until 2028 through the Jewish Community Protection and Security Grant, supporting synagogues, schools and community sites. That funding means more patrols, stronger security and greater protection around places where Jewish life is lived, taught and celebrated. And of course you have a security guard and vast security here on the synagogue every day, but in particularly on Fridays and today. And when appalling attacks have happened, government has acted there too, including emergency support for Hatzolah after those despicable arson attacks in Golders Green. That is what solidarity looks like when it is serious. Not just words, but resources, protection and action. But if security is the first duty, of course it's not the only duty of any government, because anti-Semitism does not just appear on the street, it can surface in the very institutions that people rely on. And that is why the government has accepted in full our colleague Lord Mann's recommendations following his review into anti-Semitism and racism in our National Health Service. That key British institution, one of the very key British institutions that are left right throughout this country that holds the respect of the public. That includes mandatory anti-Semitism training, stronger accountability, standards and practical measures to ensure Jewish staff and patients are properly recognised and properly supported. No one should face prejudice in the very institutions that are meant to care for them. Tackling anti-Semitism must mean more than just condemning it. It must mean changing systems, raising standards, enforcing accountability, and of course education. The same is of course true in education, and here we need to speak with particular honesty. Jewish students in particular have experienced a 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in the year following the October the 7th attacks. That figure is shocking and should send a shiver down all of our spines. But behind that statistic are thousands of individual experiences and for many genuine trauma. And I've spent a lot of time with our Jewish students at the University of Edinburgh to hear their trauma, their concerns and their experiences. Can you just imagine the trauma of walking onto a university campus and questioning whether it remains a place where you are safe, of feeling isolated and uncertain whether speaking up will bring support or simply leave you to cope alone? No student should have to carry that burden because they are Jewish. Universities, colleges and schools should be places of learning, openness and places, of course, of confidence, not places of intimidation, fear or exclusion. And that is why we're investing millions to tackle anti-Semitism across schools, across our colleges and across universities. It's why further work is underway to strengthen how schools, colleges and university campuses identify and tackle anti-Semitism, while Holocaust education remains central to our national story. And let me be clear, some of our institutions are not doing enough. Edinburgh University is not doing enough, and the stuff that it is doing is not quick enough. I'd like at this stage just to place on record my thanks to the Edinburgh University Jewish Society for all their help, information, advice and guidance in my dealings with them. They've been truly superb. They hold themselves with such dignity in such adverse circumstances. But remembrance also matters, education matters, and creating a culture in which Jewish students know they belong matters profoundly. That question of belonging matters especially here in Edinburgh. According to the Scottish Jewish Archive Centre, Edinburgh's Jewish population has declined over the last century from roughly 2,000 to just under 1,000. Is that correct? It is correct. It seems a rather low number, but a community's value, of course, is not measured in numbers alone. But smaller numbers can mean less visibility, greater pressure on communal life, and a sharper sense of vulnerability when people feel unsafe. And that is why gatherings like this matter so much, because in a smaller community, institutions are not optional extras. They are the anchors of our identity, of our continuity, of our belonging and care, of helping people know that they are not alone. So when the Board of Deputies comes to Edinburgh, it's more than just holding a meeting. It affirms a community. It strengthens ties. It says that Jewish life in Scotland is part of the wider story of British history. And it reminds us that representation matters, especially when communities are under such pressure. And that brings me to community cohesion. Too often people speak as though supporting the Jewish community and promoting cohesion are somehow separate goals. They are obviously not. They are completely and utterly inseparable. A comprehensive society is not one where minorities are expected to become less visible or where threats against communities are downplayed for political convenience. Real cohesion is built upon equal citizenship, mutual respect, shared responsibility, and the confidence that every community belongs and will be defended to that belonging. A strong society does not ask people to shrink themselves to fit in. It gives them the confidence to stand tall and contribute the most. And that's the one reason why the Drumlanrig Accords matter so much. You may have heard about these already this weekend. They are a landmark agreement between the Muslim community and Jewish religious leaders in the UK, rooted in shared values, ethical principles, and the determination to show dialogue over division. When I first heard about this initiative, I thought it was brave, ambitious, but absolutely necessary. I remember being at Spencer House back in February 2025 when I was the Secretary of State for Scotland, and I was proud to play my part in that journey and in that signing. The records were the result of sustained work by Imam Dr. Siad Razawi, including a private retreat at Drumlanrig Castle here in Scotland. A bit of whisky was drank there, I believe, as well, potentially, where Jewish and Muslim leaders came together with ministers and officials from the UK government, the Scottish government, and the European Commission. And what made that process so important was not the ceremony, but the trust. It showed that peace is built patiently, that cohesion is built through relationships, and that when faith communities of all faiths and none, institutions and government come together seriously, they can create something of much lasting value. The messages sent out what that peace, community cohesion, and mutual tolerance was to be celebrated and the building block of our communities. For the first time in UK history, senior representatives from major Muslim and Jewish traditions came together to shape a framework based on shared values, reconciliation, and social responsibility. And I believe the Accords have already helped strengthen that relationship with the Jewish and Muslim communities in this country and in this city. Congratulations to all involved in making this Accord possible. They even got to present it, I think, to His Majesty the King at Buckingham Palace. Somebody had to go, I suppose. So congratulations again to all involved. The Accords sit comfortably alongside the annual candle lighting ceremony that multi-faith leaders, community champions and politicians participate here in Edinburgh to show mutual solidarity. The mutual lighting of a simple candle has such meaning and means so much. They are a reminder that another path is possible, they're a reminder that dialogue is possible, and the reminder that path has to be about mutual respect, moral purpose, especially at a time of tension and division, and that matters enormously. That is also the thinking behind the government's broader cohesion strategy. The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government Protecting What Matters strategy sets out a whole society response to the extremism of division and anti-Semitism. It includes additional funding for communities facing that anti-Semitism, support for interfaith programmes and local initiatives, and stronger coordination across government to tackle all of those extremisms and divisions. All of that reflects a very simple truth for us all. Cohesion just does not happen. It has to be built. It has to be protected by those that believe in it, and it has to be renewed. In the modern world, that also means taking seriously the information environment in which we all live. Social media has accelerated the spread of mis and disinformation. Its extremist narratives, shaping attitudes offline, fueling hostility, deepening divisions. So if we're serious about cohesion, we must be serious about the media ecosystem as well. And that's why my ministerial department, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, we are focused on ensuring our media system supports democracy, public trust and a better informed society, because falsehood thrives when scrutiny is weak, and because the fight against anti-Semitism is also, in part, a fight for truth. There was just a short story on social media. There was an appalling attack of graffiti on the mosque not far from here, Edinburgh Central Mosque, and I posted a letter of solidarity and offering of help to them, and posted that on my Facebook account. It got 3,500 comments within minutes. I posted a few hours later my weekly evening news article for the Edinburgh Evening News local newspaper. A great read. You should read it every Thursday. Only 65 pence at Good News Agents. And it had 2 comments and 3 likes. So as an experiment, I edited the post and I just put the words Muslim and mosque into it. And it got thousands of responses from bots who are seeking out words like anti-Semitism, Muslim, mosque, synagogue, Jew, and as soon as they see that, the bots on these systems are automatically creating that algorithmic response where you get thousands and thousands of disgusting responses to it. The social media companies have to be held to account for this, and they have to respond to this. And it's that. And it's that is driving a lot of our societal narrative around these big, important issues. Government is also strengthening the legislative framework to counter these malign actors, protect places of worship and ensure communities can gather, worship and live free from intimidation while maintaining that right for peaceful protests. Because that balance matters. The right to protest matters. But so does the right of Jewish communities to worship, gather and live without fear. A serious democracy protects and encourages both. And beyond legislation, the current Prime Minister has brought together leaders from across public life to drive that whole of society response to anti-Semitism. Because this burden cannot just fall on Jewish communities alone. It is all a responsibility for government. It's the responsibility for the police, for our schools and universities and wider educators, for all of our faith leaders, for local authorities, for media organisations, and for the public as a whole. Because anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem, it's not your problem, it's a national problem, a test of all of our values, a test of how seriously we take these issues, and a test of whether we really mean it when we say we speak about decency, equality and respect. So let this weekend and these 2 days in Edinburgh be remembered not only as the first Board of Deputies Plenary here in more than 20 years, I hope it won't be 20 years again before you return, but as a declaration of confidence in this community, in Jewish life across the UK, and in the values that bind us all together. A confident country does not ask its minorities to be quieter. A cohesive country does not leave any community to face hatred alone. And a decent country does not equivocate about anti-Semitism. It confronts it, full stop. It stands with those targeted by it, full stop. And it defends the right of Jewish life to flourish openly and proudly, full stop. Because this is about more than just policy, it's about more than just government, it's more than funding, it's more than legislation. It's about whether a Jewish child in this country grows up feeling safe. As a father of a 5- and 1-year-old girl, I know how important that is for any parent to know that, but even more so at this time for Jewish parents. It's about whether a Jewish student can walk into a campus without fear or favour. It's about whether a Jewish family can come to a synagogue, celebrate a festival, mark Shabbat, or live out their faith not anxiously, not quietly, not looking over their shoulders, but freely, fully, and with pride. It's about whether we're the kind of country we still believe ourselves to be, and I believe we must be. A country where Jewish life is not merely protected but cherished. A country where difference is not feared but honoured. A country where hatred is not managed but defeated. And a country where people do not retreat into silence but stand together in courage. So let us be equal to that treatment. Let us answer fear with solidarity, and let us all come together with that courage and fellowship. And let us answer anti-Semitism with an unshakable determination that Jewish life, proud, visible, joyful, faithful, will flourish here in Edinburgh, will flourish in Scotland, and will flourish across the whole of the United Kingdom for generations to come. That's what the government is committed to doing. That's what I am committed to doing. That's what everyone in this room is committed to doing. We stand together, and that's why it's such an honour to be here today. And I thank you for your time for listening. Thank you. And if I may, Chair, I have one small addition. because I started during the COVID pandemic with COVID Community Hero Awards. And the COVID Community Hero Awards were the public saying to me, could we recognise people who've done things over and above in the community during COVID and just recognise them in some way? And then when COVID passed, I got flooded with nominations for Community Hero Awards that didn't have the COVID in it. And they've been so popular across the constituency because this constituency is so full of people who want to help. And there was a nomination for our Jewish representatives at the University of Edinburgh who have helped so much with the students at Edinburgh University during this really difficult time for them. And I know Ela Ran and Ayala Shabo are here, and they were nominated by students themselves and the Jewish Society at the University of Edinburgh. So if I may just spend 30 seconds presenting them with a Community Hero Award for all the work they've done in the local community. Oh, and we're on time.
Minister, thank you so much for your profound contribution this morning. First of all, for being with us on Sunday morning, taking up your weekend, but also for the real substance that you provided today, which I know is terrific and will be of great comfort to all of us at the Board of Deputies. And as also Louise mentioned earlier, for your long-standing solidarity with our community. The comments you made about content on the internet is something, of course, that is something that rings with us as so true. I mean, we, as an organisation, are present on the internet. I had the meeting with 4 internet providers a few weeks ago in DC for TikTok, YouTube, X, and Meta, and we were told by the organisations, by these companies, that they take the problems of anti-Semitism, racism generally seriously. There are even claims that 98% of content doesn't make it. But you look at the stuff that's posted just on our X account, it's just eye-watering. So just as a couple of examples, a few weeks ago after the attacks in Belfast and Southampton, we made a statement condemning the appalling violence targeting ethnic minorities and other communities. And likewise, we with JCOS have given solidarity to the Muslim community here. And the content that we get was just awful. But the thing that I did particularly focus then in DC was what happened, and you mentioned the attack on the ambulances in Golders Green, the burning of the ambulances. That was an appalling attack. But then what followed on the internet, in terms of the claims there's a false flag that is being done for insurance, stuff about why do Jews have their own ambulances, even though it's a service which provides support for the community at large and works closely with in that case, the London Ambulance Service. And of course, no one makes the point about St John's Ambulance in the same way. And it's just absolutely appalling, and all of that goes to corrode social cohesion and create a sense of isolation. But it's also coupled with the sheer, whatever the rights and wrongs of the conflict, the sheer obsessiveness, and we know from speaking to our community here, how, and you've alluded to it in terms of Edinburgh University, the sheer obsessive focus on Israel and the Middle East and Gaza. It's just so pernicious and so impactful on our communities across the country. And it's sad to say that even yesterday, people leaving the synagogue were abused by someone shouting at them just because they were visibly Jewish, free Palestine. So it's a real problem, And we know that the government takes it very seriously, and you mentioned many of the measures that have been taken. But this is an ongoing problem. And all of us are seeing ever-increasing levels of security, which of course is necessary, and we're very grateful for the support, the financial support and logistical support from the government, the police and other agencies. But of itself, it's not the answer. It has to, as you know, we have to tackle the underlying causes, and we have to be honest about what those causes are and confront them as the only real true sense of solidarity. We're so grateful that you came here today, and it's so appreciated. And we do wish you every success in your endeavours as well. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much as well for coming along. So it's a pleasure. If everyone could please thank you.
Now I move to the next item to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 17th of May. That's agreed. Agreed? Thank you. Questions to the acting president and honorary officers. Do you want to ask a question? Please would you come to the side here? And the clock is set at 1 minute, I'll remind you. And I'll start with Sheila, I think, wants to make a statement.
Thank you, Louise. Sheila Gewald, Cardiff
Yeah.
United Synagogue. It's not a question. I did have a word with Jeremy that I could speak. I have tried to keep it to a minute. Based on what the MP Ian Murray has just said, I want to show everybody's delight that I have had an announcement on Friday from the Religious Education Council of the UK, of which I am a trustee and board member, that the Secretary of State for Education has today, that was Friday, announced that there will be a public consultation on the future content of the national curriculum, including religious education, in September. So this is following a curriculum and assessment review that's been ongoing of there was a task and finish group of which Anna Silva was a huge part to actually perform a miracle that there was a consensus across the religious community, the interfaith community, to support the idea of RE going on the national curriculum. And this will be set out. There are going to be programmes of study that will be agreed. So this is a slow process. It has to go through Parliament. But I want to say how amazing it is that after nearly 40 years, RE will be mandatory. And we are making sure that through the SACREs, all the SACRE reps in this room and online, we have a huge job now to make sure there's a Jewish voice on every SACRE in every part of the UK, well, England and Wales, to make sure that the Jewish content of the new RE syllabus will progress. And I thank you for letting me say that. Thank you. But we're delighted.
Well done, Sheila.
Okay, right, yes.
Hi, Julian Berman, Deputy for Radical Reform Synagogue and the new Hertfordshire Progressive Synagogue as we continue our merger with Liberal Synagogue Elstree. I just want to use this opportunity to recognise the incredible work by Andrew Gilbert, Amanda Bowman and others on the BOD and the LGF on winning the £1.5 million grant for the Jewish Health Equity Partnership, which is very important to me in my additional capacity as chair of Hertfordshire Jewish Forum and the Hertfordshire Jewish Health Partnership. I was fortunate enough, or unfortunate enough, to end up in Watford General Hospital just a month ago, having my gallbladder out, and I experienced firsthand the incredible treatment that we get from our NHS. And I work very closely with our West Herts Teaching Hospital's chaplaincy team as well on tackling anti-Semitism within the NHS and within our Watford hospitals. I was talking to an Israeli family in St Albans not that long ago about anti-Semitism that they personally experienced in the hospital, and we are working very closely with our team in Hertfordshire now to ensure that we can stamp out anti-Semitism. My quick question to Ben and the team is, how are we going to ensure that this £1.5 million worth of funding is not just going to be focused on London and the South East, but is actually going to support sort of the whole of England, and then beyond that, how do we replicate that model in our regions like Scotland, etc. Thank you.
Paul Hart, online. Paul Hart.
Hi everyone. My question is the people that were arrested to do the arson on the ambulances within Golders Green. We've not heard anything for a long time to what's happening there. Is this a problem again with the CPS?
Right. Thank you. Susan Pascoe, online.
Thank you. So, Susan Pascoe, Deputy for Neusra Schule in Hendon. There's nothing in the board statement, been no comment by the board on the UN report published a couple of weeks ago and submitted last week to the UN Human Rights Council that Israel is deliberately targeting children in Gaza. The community expects the board to condemn, provide context, which has been omitted from the report, and correct news organizations who are also not providing context when they report on it. We know anti-Semitism increases exponentially as a result of such reports. And just to add that you do mention in your report the board's application for special consultative status to the UN Economic and Social Council. It's been approved, which is excellent news. But all types of leverage need to be used to protect our communities everywhere against anti-Semitism and hatred of Israel. Thank you.
Simon Gordon, online.
Very quickly, I've been talking to the Druze community and I have been talking to the Sikh community. I now need to know what the board wants me to do about those consultations. How I take them forward. That's not necessary for this meeting, but I've been pursuing that for some time, and I need someone to tell me how we pursue that.
Thank you. Zach Bates.
Hello. The anti-Semitism kind of rally against anti-Semitism on the 10th of May that the board took part in featured Richard Tice, who had earlier that morning been on the news and had said failed to condemn some rather choice things that someone had said about Nigerians. I've spoken to a few members of my community who are Black or of mixed race heritage who feel deeply let down by this, and that they feel that the Jewish community is not standing with them as members of the Jewish community. And so having had a bit more time, a month or two, to kind of reflect since the rally, what does the board think should happen going forward in terms of dealing with potentially quite risky political speakers?
Paul Harris.
Yeah, hello. I was actually going to answer the question that someone else raised, Paul Hart, about the ambulances, simply to say that a number of people have been charged and they are awaiting trial early next year. I think there's 6 or 7 people charged, and there won't be a huge amount of publicity about it until the trial starts, because they're obviously entitled to a fair trial. So things are proceeding. They were arrested and charged quickly, and a number of other defendants were identified later.
Thank you. Adrian, would you like to respond to some of these points? And then if any of the other honorary officers want to answer, I'll bring them in too. Adrian.
Yeah. Thank you very much. With regard to the United Nations, as you'll be aware, we are part of various international frameworks. So the J7, which we work with the ADL Secretariat, J7 Task Force on Anti-Semitism, World Jewish Congress, and also we collaborate with the AJC. So, and in all of those, we do have exposure to the United Nations and coordinate what we say. So I don't mean to diminish, I mean, I agree that it's a highly egregious report that came out, but it's something that we are, in terms of how we approach the UN, in discussion with our international partners on that. It is great news that we've now got accredited status at the United Nations. It's something that has taken a long, long time to happen. I just want to put on record thanks to David Mendoza-Wolfson for all the tenacity that he gave to this, as well as David Robinson in the staff. It took a long time, not because these things take a long time, but because certain countries were deliberately tripping us up the whole time. People may recall we had an emergency plenary because someone took a rather obscure point as to how we refer to Gibraltar in our constitution as a basis for knocking us back on one particular occasion. So it has been a long road, and that does give us greater scope in order to deal with the issues. Recently, we were in Geneva with the World Jewish Congress, and we met with the British ambassador representative to the UN agencies in Geneva, including the Human Rights Council, and we also met with the political officer of the Interparliamentary Union. So we do spend a lot of time lobbying people on the issues, particularly the egregious way in which Israel is singled out in the way that no other country is, and we do our best in that regard. And you know, we are. There are other things that we do as well, but there are inbuilt systemic problems, as you know, with the United Nations, but we do take that seriously. Thank you very much, Simon, for all of your efforts regarding the Druze community and the Sikh. There's been a whole history of active engagement with the Sikh community with the Board of Deputies, so it's good to see that you're contributing to that, and we can look to see how we can coordinate with what you have been doing in that regard. And with regard to the Druze, as we've discussed previously, I've had my own contacts there, and we should find the time to again coordinate what we are doing. Regarding the Zach's question on the rally, this is something we've talked about before. We were part of a broad coalition of organisations which put together the rally at a very, very tense time. You know, it was at the time of the fire bombings and of the ambulances of synagogues and communal spaces, and also the stabbings in Golders Green. So and there was incredibly high security. It's the first time I've ever been to a public protest where there was airport security, level security around the protest to get into it, which kind of tells you the kind of environment that we're in. We did elect to go for a broad tent or big tent. That was there was a risk that the community would be fragmented, and when you go for a broad tent, it means that there's a lot of give and take. There are decisions which are taken which one may have reservations about, but it's all part of a broad tent strategy to try and bring everyone together. Of course, it's very difficult to do that, and we were not wholly successful in that. But it's also kind of reflected not only the environment we were operating in, but also the political context, which was the local elections where the party you refer to was polled as performing extremely high and has a material base of support within our own community. And so that just has to be factored in. There are lessons, there's learnings and lessons learnt from that rally. I think we all recognise the complexity of having a range of political speakers. Without telling tales out of school, our focus, our preferred focus would have been on celebrities, but actually very few celebrities, when it came to it, were prepared to put their heads above the parapet. And also the way the political complexion arose was also not something that happens in a vacuum either, because it depends on the extent to which political parties and government are prepared to cooperate as well. So I think one has to take all of it in the round, and we have to accept the fact that in a very polarised political environment, you're not going to please everyone. And I know for a fact that It wasn't just Richard Tice that provoked controversy. It was also Ed Davey that provoked controversy. The fact that we didn't have a Green speaker provoked controversy, but there were good reasons for that, because the leadership of the Green Party were making overtly statements which were overtly hostile to the interests of our community at the time, so it just wasn't possible to do that. Doesn't mean that we're not engaging with the Green Party, but that just created a practical problem at the time. And also, as I said at the last plenary, it was deeply upsetting that we saw a senior minister of the government, Pat McFadden, being booed, which was, I think, unforgivable and so misguided, because he's been a long-standing friend of our community. But again, that. You know, we try and influence the weather. We try and do that here in Edinburgh with some success. Actually, we managed to push the rain back, but we're not even with our super laser weather producers. We can't be entirely in control of the context in which we operate, and that's, you know, speaking here as someone. As acting president in this environment, you to some extent you play the cards you're dealt with and you make the best of them. And actually, I still stand by the view that that rally was a great success, notwithstanding some of the inevitable problems that there were about it. But there was learning from that, and there's no doubt about that. And we'll see if and when there is another rally. I'm sure there will be plenty more discussion about that. And in advance of it already, there are things we know that we would do different to what we then did at the time.
Karen.
Thank you very much. Just very briefly, Sheila, thank you for drawing attention to what's happened with religious education, and I would like to pay tribute to your work on Sacre and that you've done over many years helping to bring that about. With regard to the lottery project, I'd like to associate myself with Julian's remarks, thanking Andrew Gilbert for all of the work that he did to make sure that the board was even in the frame for that, let alone winning the lottery. And also to say that I've been very new while we've had to do huge amounts of work on the initial stages of the lottery. And it's Ben, together with Amanda Bowman, who has shouldered the burden for that. With regard to your question, Paul Hart, I was just thinking, where is Paul Harris when you need him? My understanding is that 5 people have been charged with the offences related to the Hatzoller ambulances, but where's Paul? And then he came up. So thank you so much, Paul, for responding. And you should all know as deputies that Paul was with me when we had a recent meeting with the Director of Public Prosecutions, and it was a privilege to sit alongside Paul and our Head of Policy, Toby, at that meeting. So thank you, Paul. Simon, please be in touch. We did reach out we made a statement in support, particularly of the Sikh community, after the horrendous incidents in Southampton, and I was listening to a Sikh leader who was saying the levels of religious illiteracy in this country are absolutely shocking, and they were saying that there were people going around saying that Sikhs shouldn't be allowed to carry the very small ceremonial daggers that they use. And this guy had a 10-inch blade on him. Absolutely nothing to do with that whatsoever. And I was really proud that the board came out in solidarity at that moment. But I would like to talk to you, Simon, about what you're doing with the Sikh community, and obviously Adrian working with the Druze, so that we do that in a coordinated fashion. Please be in touch with us and we'll reach out to you. Thank you. That's just what I wanted to say. Other than to say, I know from my previous life working in international development that now that the board has consultative status with the UN, it will put us in a far better position, because we will be in the spaces and places to make a difference.
Thank you, Karen. Jeremy.
Yes, thank you, Louise. Just to reiterate the point that Sheila, congratulate Sheila for the work that she's done, and Anna for the work that she's done. People should know that Anna Silva has done tremendous work in helping to construct just the beginning of the outline for the proposed RE in the national curriculum, and consulted with all the major stakeholders in our community to make sure that everybody was, generally happy with what was going to be put out. So this is just the first stage in this process. It'll, it still has some way to go, but hopefully that's our job then, us and all the deputies and those even who are not deputies, to make sure that Judaism is taught effectively and appropriately in the national curriculum, RE.
Thank you. And in the absence of any more questions, I'm now going to go to a special item on the 50th anniversary of the Entebbe rescue. Adrian.
Thank you. As was mentioned and discussed in Shul yesterday and at the lunch, this is the 50th anniversary of the rescue of the hostages in Entebbe, and we think that we should mark that occasion. We're fortunate in that one of our very esteemed deputies, Clive Lawton, was present at the plenary on Sunday when the news 50 years ago came through about the successful rescue, and so I think it'd be very heartening to hear Clive's recollections of that plenary, and then what we'll close with is a minute's silence for the loss of Yoni Netanyahu, who was the sole soldier who died in the rescue, and Dora Bloch, if you may remember, who was the hostage who was taken away and was murdered. So without focusing more on that, over to Clive.
Thank you very much. I doubt that there has ever been a more euphoric Board of Deputies meeting than that one 50 years ago. I mean, there have been euphoric events, haven't there? The founding of the State of Israel or the winning of the Six-Day War or whatever. But as far as I know, there wasn't a meeting on the very day. And on that occasion, we arrived at the venerable Woburn House back then and crowded into the musty hall. And there were, I think, at that time, more deputies than there were MPs. So the community was extremely well represented. And on that occasion, we all arrived with the fresh news that this thing that had been hanging over the Jewish world for several days, I think the entire world, Jewish world, mystified as to how anything could go right in this. This plane full of people held hostage there in Uganda, an apparently inaccessible place in this airport, Entebbe. What could possibly happen? And we all just sat on tenterhooks waiting for disaster to unfold. And then miraculously that morning, news filtered through. Remember, we didn't have the 24/7 news cycle we have now. News filtered through that somehow, amazingly, Israel had got in and rescued everybody. It wasn't completely clear what had happened. I don't think we fully knew by the end of that meeting of these two deaths. But nevertheless, that meeting of the Board of Deputies, that euphoria that we captured at that moment, that sense that Israel would be there to act, was something which I think we had not fully absorbed, even though it had been a fundamental principle, in a sense, of the founding of the State of Israel. That Jews would never again, somewhere, be entirely helpless, that an active, independent state could figure out what to do. Well, we all know it's a little bit more complicated than that ever since, but nevertheless, at that moment, there was great joy in the Jewish world. I don't think there were any Jews, even those who are occasionally a little uncertain about their affiliation to the community. But I don't think there were at that moment any Jews who were just not utterly relieved and utterly amazed, and it was utterly remarkable. 3 years later, I was in Nairobi, standing looking at a cinema which was showing Raid on Entebbe. And I stood outside the cinema to look at the stills they used to show. You remember those photographs outside cinemas of the film. And I was looking at it thinking, well, I wonder how this is going down. And an African guy, about 6'9", he seemed to me, came up behind me, put his arms around my shoulder. He'd seen my kippah and said, "Well done." I said it was nothing, you know. But it was wonderful to know. And it remains true that we have many good, passionate friends in Africa and around Africa. And of course, had it not been for the cooperation of Kenya at that time, the raid would not have been able to be successful. And I believe that there were casualties in Kenya after an attack by the Ugandan Air Force in reprisal. And so as we remember Dora Bloch and we remember Yoni Netanyahu, maybe we can also spare a corner of our thoughts too for those in Kenya who died as a result of their friendship and cooperation.
Just before I do the accounts, just a couple of other very quick things. First, just to answer the other half of Julian's question from before. The health bill is really incredible, fantastic achievement, an awful lot of work to get done, a 5-year commitment from the lottery. The board is one of 9 national partners representing a range of minority groups. I've got a whole list somewhere, but in London, in Manchester, in Bradford, in Sunderland, all across. It is England only because that's the scope of the National Lottery Community Fund at this stage. And the bid, in a nutshell, is essentially to take the work that the London Jewish Health Partnership has done, to expand it, to grow its scope, to give it professional staff, to upgrade its ambitions. Year 1 to build that out. So that will be the 4 ICSs, the commissioning, the commissioning areas: North, Central, Northeast, Northwest, and then Southwest Hearts. Then year 2 and year 3, we committed to the lottery to do it in a certain way, but obviously we'll see how things go and move up and down timing to Manchester, Liverpool, the other, and all other ICSs with any sort of material Jewish presence demographically. We are, of course, one of the things that's happened between the bid going in and now is that Lord Mann's published his report. There's a lot of overlap, there's a lot of detail. He has, and the NHS have quote unquote accepted in full. He has obviously thought out a slightly different way of approaching some of these things. So we're meeting with him, we're meeting with APT, and we'll sort of tease out between us so the best way to move forward. But yeah, we're going to be having meetings over July. We're going to be recruiting. It's going to when it sort of kicks into full gear in the autumn, it will be sort of a major part of our work. The rest of this triennium, through next triennium, we're contractually committed, like I said, to I think July 2031, by which time at least some of the top table will have different jobs. Though I look forward to see many familiar faces in due course. So yeah, much more on that as things move forward. And thanks again to everyone who's helped with putting it all together. Can I have a little QR code up on the screen? I think we've arranged something, because my second pre-accounts point is yes, is the crowdfund. I'll just start talking. So obviously we had a crowdfund a couple of weeks ago. Thank you very much to everyone who took part. We did good. We did OK plus. We hit our target, 200 grand, hundreds of new donors. The amount we raised per donor went up. Really appreciated all the hard work that people did as ambassadors and their generosity and support as donors themselves. I'm just putting up on the screen, and for people in the room, you can get your phones out. For people online, again, you should be able to access it. Anyone who's not yet given, the crowdfund page is still open, will still be live to the middle of the week. I should say, by the way, people online can't see, but everyone in the room has their phones up right now. So don't feel left out. However, I would say we did probably a B plus crowdfund. There are learnings for next time. One of the learnings in particular is we did have fewer individual donors and fewer ambassadors in aggregate active than last time round. I really want to encourage all deputies going forward, the next time we run one of these, all deputies to participate. Part of what makes it work is the volume of communications. People get messages from one person they may give. If they get messages from 2, 3, 4, 5, they're much more likely to give. And even small donations, have a cumulative effect. But if every deputy had been able to raise, I think, £20 from each of 20 people, which I think is very doable for almost everyone, then we would have doubled our money overall, doubled our take, which would have been even more fantastic than what we were able to raise. So I'll just put that little note there for the moment, and when we start ramping up for the next one, we will sort of comment and focus on what we've learned from this time round. And we'll close the page this week. And I should say also, if anyone who was an ambassador and has a donor they'd particularly like to see recognised, let me know. Let Sarah Radovan know. Phil is writing notes at the moment. He's back on Monday morning. I'm just going to chain him to a desk with a list of thank you cards, and we'll get them all signed and sent out. So that's, with all that as preamble, deputies will have in their packs the annual accounts. So that for the three entities, for the foundation, which consolidates the other entities, for Board Limited, which is our non-charitable entity that does various political things and various things which are out with the foundation's overall charitable purposes, and then for Bod Heritage, which is is the entity that owns cemeteries, disused cemeteries around the country and does other little bits and pieces. They're all, like I said, they're all mushed together. They're all consolidated within the foundation.
Mushed is a technical term for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I should apologise that the accounts, obviously, it's a very long document, and I appreciate it. It is a technical accounting document. There are endless notes about accruals and prepayments and related party transactions and this, that, the other. The allocation of costs accounting for charities, VAT. I'll stop. The key bits for deputies to read and to be aware of are pages 3 to 5 of the accounts, which are a summary of our activities, which should look very familiar because it is drawn off the impact report that people had in January of 2025, and then pages 6 and 7 are sort of a plain English summary of the financials. And they're at the moment, they're just going through final proofing, and the audit partner at Crow, no relation, will hopefully sign them off this week. I will just give a quick financial summary where people refresh their memories. 2025 was, as you've seen, a very busy and a financially successful year for the organisation. I would say the most important thing, and the thing we haven't done for quite a few years, is on the cost side. We hit our budget. We had a budget that says this is what we're planning to spend. We spent actually just a tiny bit less than that. So that's it's all very well to raise money. You have to make sure that you are spending within what you expect and you understand what the organisation is actually doing with it. We had an overall surplus just of this year just gone of just over £450,000. The trustees will not be recommending a dividend. And this is our best financial year since 2014, when, as long-standing deputies may remember, we sold our building, so we had a quite big one-off whack at that point. But it follows, obviously, a surplus in 2024 and a surplus of over the last triennium as well, such that from the point where I first became treasurer in June 2021, the asset base of the board is up about £950,000. Now, that's a great position to be in. And obviously, thanks as well to Michael Ziff, who was treasurer, for some of that period as well. It's obviously a great position to be in. But this is money, and I said in my report as well, this is money that was raised by the organisation to be spent on our charitable activities, and it will be spent. It does need to be spent. So deputies should expect the 2027 budget and then the budget from my predecessor to likely be spending down this money, and to instead of running surpluses, we'll be running to a certain extent carefully and conservatively, but running deficits to spend down the money which has been raised. There was also seen in my report that we had an exceptional fundraising month this last month. Obviously, not just the health bid, but our Arts Cultural Funding for Jewish Culture Month. There's an education bid which is embargoed, but as with the health bid was embargoed, but people could see in reports for 3 or 4 months that, we had a health bid, and then suddenly everything went quiet. If people look at previous reports and look at the other things we were raising money for, everyone can reasonably infer what we may have been successful of. Of course, the crowdfund itself, we build the rep fees, so generally a very good month, but most of that money is restricted, most of that is for specific projects, and the need continues to raise everything we're raising, and probably a little bit more as well for the core work of the board in political advocacy and comms, and we're going to be continuing to push and try to raise more on that area as we go forward. So with that all as a preamble and summary, I'm happy to take any questions people have about the accounts. I should say, by the way, that as soon as I'm finished answering your questions, we will have a break, and there is food over there. So deputies online.
That's where the money's gone.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And please.
Anyone that wants to, please, would you come here to this side? And I'd thank you very much, Ben, for that report and for your work in achieving this result.
Hi, Ben. Just a quick one.
Can you give your name and...
Zare Portland Maidenhead Synagogue. Very good set of accounts. I'm going to just mention this point, although I may not mention this again, because it's rather a pedantic point in a way. But in your page 3, you talked about the meeting in Manchester with a guest speaker on November the 25, the plenary.
Yeah.
It was actually in October, because I remember it well, because I made my maiden speech on October the 18th. So I'm not sure that kind of point I should make in the future, but I just want to say it was in October 25.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to ask? Would you come to this side, please?
I should say that every number I put in the accounts, the auditors want to be explained, but they didn't ask me for that one.
Okay, next question.
Sorry, could I just ask a bit of forbearance here? It's not a direct question to Ben either. It just follows on from Paul Harris's comments.
Name, please.
It's Julian Verman for Radcliffe Reformed Synagogue again. I just wanted to follow up Paul's comments about the arrests and charges that have been made. I have a monthly briefing with the Counter-Terrorism Branch and Hertfordshire Constabulary, and my latest update from them was that since the 5th of May, there have been no further offences recorded. There have been a total of 35 arrests made in relation to all of the incidents that occurred up until May. 10 people have been charged with arson-related offences. 1 person's already pleaded guilty, and 17 people remain on bail with conditions. So really, there's been massive progress with the CTB in London and Hertfordshire. Sadly, many of the people arrested do come from Hertfordshire. They come from Luton and Watford in many cases. There's a huge issue with particularly radicalised young men, aged 15 to 17, that we're dealing with at the moment. And I cannot sing Hertfordshire Constabulary's praises enough with the work that they are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that shows that the money identified in the accounts is being spent well. Thank you. Anybody else? A question? Yes. Can you come to the mic, please? Could you give us your name and constituency, please?
Very good. I'm Alina Weisman. I am for West London Synagogue. My question is, I'm part of the Under 35 group. It was great to hear that, from Adrian's opening remarks, sorry, I'm shy, that there are several new Under 35s. As we were under budget this year, Ben, as emphasized by you, it's great that there is an under-35s assembly at the board, and last year we did an Israel visit. That was fantastic. Since then, I'm not aware of any other events or programs. For this last year, are there any expenditures for, under-35s? What is the board doing to strengthen the under-35s group?
Thank you. Right, before I go back to Ben, does anybody else want to ask a question on the accounts? No. Right. Well,
yes.
Oh, there's one. Sorry. Yes. Clive, would you like to come back here?
Clive Lawton, Bristol Hebrew Congregation. If I may say, just by the way, my comments previously, I was a deputy at that time. Somebody asked me if when I was an officer, I was a student deputy for IUJF, which used to be, which is now UJS. In this particular matter, bids should be coming in now to Ben as to how to spend this princely sum. And I want to lay down a first one, which is the costs of travel for people associated with the Board of Deputies, especially those from out of London. Not only for the attending of meetings, but we heard about the need for people to be at sacres and so forth. And I think that there needs to be a much better advertised policy and programme for ways in which people do not find themselves cost reduced by playing a part in Board of Deputies related activity. There is a policy, I know, but it's not very widely disseminated. It's a little hard to get into, and it would be very good to build that better.
That's fine.
Right, because there's no one else is indicating. So yes, yes, and I'm just checking that no one else wants to ask anything before I ask Ben to respond. No, right, Ben.
Thanks very much. So I'll just do Clive's first because I think that's a slightly quicker response, which is I'll have the policy document recirculated this coming week. Broadly speaking, the board covers intercity costs, so costs of people to come from Manchester or Birmingham or London or whatever to Edinburgh, subsidised, and in general, the reverse is true as well. When we have a plenary meeting in London, costs, the costs of coming from differences it's covered. We don't, as a matter of policy, cover sort of travel within London. Lots of people have travel cards, a lot of people have rail arrangements of various kinds, and we feel there's a sort of level of de minimis expenditure which sort of is part of the deputy role. In terms of the weekend specifically, there was a subsidy pot. I think it went at the bottom of one of the pieces of paper. So many people may not have noticed it because they weren't in position to need it, but we did have some requests and we paid it out there as well. In general, obviously, the point of the organisation is we're a national organisation. We do a lot of things by the nature of where the political centre of gravity and where the largest number of people in the community are. We do a lot of things in London, but we want them to be as accessible as possible to deputies who live outside London. And then when, as today, we are in a different location, we want to encourage as many deputies as possible to take part. So I'll have that circulated in general. The general steer from the organisation is people should claim expenses. The money's there to be spent on these things. Alina is a slightly more involved answer to your question, but I'll just touch a couple of points on it. I am expecting, I've had a few emails from Nat Cunin, who's the current chair of the Under-35 Assembly. We're expecting from them sort of a one-page document of the plans for the Under-35 going forwards, for the remainder of the triennium, and a proposed budget for an event or two. One of the things we do is when there's a meet-up of some kind, we'll put a little bit of money behind the bar. I think board money is being spent right now in Miznon at the end of London Pride, or perhaps that was yesterday. So we gave a little bit of support to young deputies and other young Jewish people who were running the Pride thing at the Jewish presence at London Pride. Obviously, the board supports the Under-35 deputies through the existence of the Under-35 programme, whereby they come free and we sort of absorb all the costs, and we encourage communities to take that up. We also have, I won't go into all the details, but the discounts that we provide for rep fees are drawn on by most of the youth organisations and by UJS. So even the regular deputies who are younger, who come usually, UJS, it will not astonish people to hear, do not pay full ticket price for 12 deputies. You know, we recognise that they've got even more constraints on their budget than we do. The one thing I would say, and it's a general point for everyone as well, is there is a certain amount of discretionary money in the board budget, but it's discretionary for projects for spending on projects which are board priorities and board current areas of activity. So Jewish Culture Month, Optimistic Alliance, the parliamentary advocacy, which people have heard about, regional political advocacy. I'm sure there are other things which I could name with a document in front of me. And those sorts of things, we wouldn't say necessarily, oh, yeah, there's a budget for the under 35 assembly to go spend on what they want. We'd say, well, if the under 35 assembly will come and present, or if a group of deputies will come and present, we have a project for Culture Month, we have a project for the OA, then so that's the context in which we'd look to attribute some spending. Sorry, I went on a little bit there, Louise.
Michael Uyghur, Chief Executive, would like to make some comments.
I just want to make one just comment before we go for the break. I suspect many of you know how much time is involved in being president of the Board of Deputies. It's an unpaid role, it's a voluntary role, and it requires an extraordinary amount of time and commitment. When the president goes on paternity leave, and a second person has to come in and take that role as acting president. And that has been Adrian for the last couple of months. And on behalf of everybody, I want to express thanks to Adrian for the incredible amount of work. We didn't take away from him his role as Senior Vice President responsible for international affairs. So he's been doing both things simultaneously, as well as, and really the amount of stuff that's come on that you've heard about already, Jewish Culture Month and the bids that went in, has just been the crowd fund, where Asia did an astonishing job on the crowd fund, those of you who are following the tracker. So really I want to thank him very, very much, not just with my words, but because we're in Scotland, how could I not? And so I'd like to give a little gift to Adrian. This is a local distillery. It's not something available in the rest of the country, so I thought we'll get something that you couldn't buy in your local office.
It's very well wrapped. So, hang on. That was truly unexpected. I hear the crowd. I hear the cries. 2 more months. 2 more months. But it is always it's a privilege to serve for the Board of Deputies, an institution one way or another. Not quite as long as Clive. My memories of the board go back to circa 1984. But that's still quite a long time, and I have a deep, passionate belief in the purpose and the role of the Board of Deputies, and may we continue for many, many more years producing and succeeding in doing all the amazing work that we do. So, and of course, and I really do mean this, it is a team, it's a team effort, both the professional staff, all the various people have got elected positions in the board, and deputies in general. It is a collective endeavour, and also actually our families who suffer our absences, or maybe enjoy our absences as well. So it's the halo effect of what we do. I'm sure is felt far and wide, but. It's been a very stimulating. I think it's probably the best term that can be used for the last 2 months. I thought I understood the board. Every time you kind of experience a new role at the board, you realise how much you don't know, and that's still the case for me. So that's all I'm going to say. I just wanted to, before we do break, we talked about Entebbe, and actually, we'd be remiss. We mentioned Jonathan Netanyahu and Dora Bloch. There were actually 3 other hostages as well, when I just went back to my notes, who I do want to just name. Jean-Jacques Maimoni, Pascal Cohen and Ida Borokovovich, who were also, they were killed in the crossfire at the time. So just to mention them, may all of their memories be for a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Henry. Right, we're now going to have a comfort break.
No. And I just want to thank you as an ordinary deputy for the most amazing, amazing weekend. I know you've all thanked each other over there, but we, the deputies, want to say thank you to Sarah, and I'm not going to mention anybody else because everybody was involved, but Sarah especially, because the phenomenal amount of work you do with that beautiful smile of yours and always so helpful, and we, the deputies, are so grateful to you because we are like a family. We feel like a family here, and I think it's very important to say that.
Thank you. Right, thank you, Flora, for those comments. But we're not finished yet. We've got the rest of the meeting.
We're not being heard on Zoom.
Oh, Zoom isn't working properly. We have to get that right.
Can we be heard now on the Zoom? Yes. Okay. All
Right.
good. We're all good.
Right. Thank you. Right. Next item is the open forum. And this meeting, it is the spotlight on the regions. Adrian.
Thank you very much. As you'll all be aware, we've been doing a series of forums, and we thought it would be a good opportunity, as we're here in Edinburgh, at having our regional plenary, to have an open forum on a regional spotlight. And in particular to bring forward some of our excellent regional deputies, really, to give us greater depth of understanding on the activities that we do in the regions. So without more ado, where's Jeremy? Oh, there you are. Jeremy. Jeremy, if you wouldn't mind making the opening remarks on the open forum. We're then going to have 4 speakers from different regions with an opportunity then to discuss the issues that they give rise to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Adrian. Yes, when I became a member of the board in 2015, compared to some people here, I'm a comparative junior. People were telling me, "Why are you bothering? It's London-centred." Well, I never believed that in any way, and it certainly isn't the case now. With three officials in Manchester, in Greater Manchester, and 1 in Brighton. We have this wonderful meeting we've had this weekend, and we are very, very engaged in the regions, as it should be. A friend of mine once said that being a member of a small community meant that he had to do things because there were so few people to take responsibility. He found himself taking responsibility in a way that he would not have done had he remained in a larger community in North Manchester. And there's no question that being a member of a small community, it really does encourage activism from those who are there. But at the same time, it can also lead to feelings of isolation, particularly at times like this. With rising anti-Semitism, people can often feel very isolated and exposed and vulnerable. So basically, I thought what we would do today is really just having a look at 4 particular communities that have some similarities, but as you'll see, some differences as well, to look at what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And so we're going to have, in this order, we're going to have Sheila Gewolb talking about what's going on in Cardiff, Marilyn Keane speaking online of what's happening in Bournemouth, Gillian Moonman also speaking online about what's happening in Southport, and finally, and certainly not least, Edward Green, our wonderful host this weekend, talking about the issues, both the strengths and the threats faced by the Edinburgh community. So, without any more ado, Sheila, could you start us off, please?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Sheila Gewolb, Cardiff United Synagogue. So, yeah, I've got a few notes here. It's been a very busy time. I haven't, Roger will tell you, 9 o'clock this morning, scrabbling through bits of paper. I've been a deputy since 2009. There were people when we used to meet in real life, you know, who didn't know my name, but they just knew I was Cardiff United Synagogue because I was born there, a little Welsh girl. I lived out of the community a long time, and it was only when I went back in 2000, and eventually Roger walked into shul one day in Cardiff United Synagogue. We were married just over a year later. We moved back to London, and they said, "We need a deputy. Our deputy's not going to, you know, continue. Please, will you represent us?" And you know, the rest, they say, is history. The board's given me wings to fly, to do everything I want to do with education. I've been vice president, senior vice president, and it's been the most amazing experience. And now a little bit that's about me, about Wales. So the 1901 census says that there were 1,500 Jews in Cardiff. And the 2021 census says there are still 770. Which I was 770, listen to that accent. And I was quite surprised to see that number because I know that Cardiff United Synagogue and its sister synagogue, Cardiff Reform Synagogue, CRS, between us we have about 400 members, so people are obviously identifying as Jewish and not belonging to the synagogues, which I thought was really interesting. And I think we had a stat this weekend from Rabbi Rose. Incidentally, my Cardiff United Synagogue rabbi is Rabbi Rose, Michael Rose, and our lovely Adela, our Rebbetzin. So, yeah, they're very, very active and hands-on. So the whole of Wales, apparently, has got over 2,000 Jews. I didn't realise there was that many. Was it Scotland has 4,000? Yeah, so, you know, for the size of who we are with two synagogues really still existing, we punch above our weight. So, going back to the few stats. 1858, the first synagogue was founded in East Terrace in Cardiff, but apparently there are records that go back to Jews living in Wales at the beginning of the 19th century, so, 1800 and whatever. But the first synagogues, the first communities, there were so many, nothing changes. East Terrace, Cathedral Road, Clare Road, Windsor Place. Communities merged eventually to form Cardiff United Synagogue, but there was a lot of dissent at many points. People fell out with each other. Apparently, I've got it here somewhere, in August 1880, it was decided a policeman should stand outside the synagogue for the forthcoming High Holy Days to stop people who were non-subscribers going into the synagogue. So people weren't paying their membership. Back then, they all fell out. There was an open revolt for the members against the leadership. At one point, the Chief Rabbi Herman Adler was brought in to try and say that one of the shochets that they'd appointed, anything he touched was actually treif. And they tried to get him involved in all this community politics. So nothing absolutely changes, and absolutely amazing. Anyway, broader history. In Wales, we had communities, Abertillery, Bargoed, Ebbw Vale, Rumney, Bryn Mawr. Naomi, I don't know if you're online. Naomi's got people who came from Bryn Mawr. And of course, Merthyr and Newport and Swansea. All those synagogues, they had deputies. We had Norma Glass from Swansea. Everybody's gone. It's just me and Eddie from Cardiff Reform Shul. But we punch above our weight. My synagogue, Cardiff United Synagogue, a full programme, full-time rabbi. We're independent. It's United Synagogue because all the communities merged. We have education. We have social events. They did things for Jewish Culture Month. We are starting to form engagements now with the new plight of the government in the Senate, and it's a really positive picture. And Jeremy, you mentioned sort of trials, tribulations. Absolutely, there are issues with marches and Sainsbury's throwing all the Israeli avocados all over the floor. It happens, but they come to me, and I'm lucky because I had a leadership position, so they knew if there were issues, they could come to me and I would be able to bring it to the honorary officers. But every small community needs to know that their deputy is there to help them bring it to the HOs. Don't have to fight it on your own, And anyway, and lovely to have the opportunity. I'm going to hand over now. I'm regional chair, and Marilyn, who's going to speak next, is my vice chair. Hi, Marilyn. And then Gillian, who's a great friend, and of course, Edward. Thank you, Edward, for always looking after me when I
Okay, Marilyn, it's over to you.
you.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Keane. I'm the Deputy for Bournemouth Community Hebrew Congregation, otherwise known as BCHC. I'm Vice Chair of the Board of Deputies Regional Council and Assembly. Rob Sassoon and I created and ran the new Deputy Speech Programme. I sat on the FFNO for 7 years and initiated and chaired the Deputy Engagement Working Group, otherwise known as DEW. Bournemouth has 3 deputies, including myself, the others being Alexandra Boyd for the Wessex Liberal Community and Ruth Hart for Bournemouth Reformed Synagogue. BCHC has been in existence since 1905, and over the years its membership grew exponentially. When I moved to Bournemouth in 1976, there were over 120 children in the Cheder, and I believe there were about 80 children in the Reform Cheder. Like many regional communities in the recent past, the number of Jewish people living in Bournemouth has diminished, with the children moving to London, the US, or Israel. The number of Jewish people living in the area now is about 2,000, some of whom do not belong to any Bournemouth synagogue and retain membership of their previous synagogue before they moved to Bournemouth. Many people have holiday homes or apartments in the Bournemouth area, including Edward and his lovely wife Marilla. And there are also Israelis who choose not to belong to any synagogue. BCHC is experiencing a significant resurgence. Last year, we physically moved from the beautiful synagogue we'd occupied since the turn of the 20th century. The building had become too large for the community. It was in the wrong part, in the centre of Bournemouth. Accordingly, we purchased the Reformed Synagogue building on the East Cliff, where most of our members live. The building has been completely gutted and the ground floor has been rebuilt, forming the most stunning synagogue, a lovely reception area, a deli shop, as well as milky and meaty kitchens. We have additional space on the first floor for administration, the Sephardi Community Synagogue, which is based in our shul, and a large meeting education room. The garden has been landscaped and we have a sukkah. The entrance courtyard has been improved to enable wheelchair and disability access. All of this work has created a most wonderful new shul that not only has encouraged members to attend because it's more accessible, but also many out-of-town visitors. A month ago, the chief rabbi and many local dignitaries attended the consecration of the shul. The most memorable service was held, followed by a tea reception in the garden. Some of you may have seen the press coverage in the JC, local newspapers, and on BBC TV South. Our community is most excited with what has been achieved, and importantly, the building is being used not only for religious services, but also for cultural events. To participate in the BOD's Culture Month, I arranged after Shavuot a sing-along screening of Fiddler on the Roof with a cheesecake tea, to which we invited the local council of Christians and Jews who are most supportive of our community and shul members. Activities such as table tennis, art, coffee, meet and munch all take place regularly, and we're hoping to hold the Jewish Living Experience exhibition for 2 weeks at the synagogue in November. I'm on the board of the shul and have initiated and chair an innovation working group, considering further use of the building as a village hall to make it more accessible for both religious and cultural life of the community. And it's exciting to see how much enthusiasm our relocation, rebuilding, and new initiatives has generated. But in Bournemouth, we do work cross-community. We also have a good relationship with the police, our local MPs, as well as leaders of BCP Council, and we work closely with CST. After the 7th of October, I set up a committee to deal with the crisis locally, as we don't have a rep council. An excellent chair was appointed with whom I work, and together with the leaders of the various communities, we hold meetings to deal with any issues that may arise. This is particularly relevant as, sadly, there is a very strong pro-Palestinian group with not that many members, but who regularly hold very noisy anti-Israel demonstrations. And together with the board, we've been trying for over a year to maintain the twinning between Netanya and Bournemouth. Although with the change of council, This may possibly be a losing fight. The other communities are the Reform, the Wessex Liberal, and Chabad, as well as numerous steebles on the East Cliff, with 2 kosher hotels, 2 kosher delis, one at BCHC and the other at Chabad. I've been a deputy for 8 years. I promote the Board of Deputies within the Bournemouth Jewish and wider community whenever I can. Our president has visited us twice during this term when he meets with our members, local politicians, the police, and so on. If you gain anything from my brief talk today about the Bournemouth community, my suggestion is that in order to regenerate and invigorate your own regional community, think outside the box, create a project which your members and possible new members will wish to be involved. Make your synagogue the place to be and where they can make friends and build relationships. Alternatively, move down to Bournemouth and join our friendly and welcoming, warm and sunny Bournemouth Hebrew congregation. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. And so next, it's over to you, Gillian. Gillian Moonman.
Thank you. Good afternoon, deputies. Gillian Moonman, Southport Hebrew Congregation, United Synagogue. And I'm glad to hear you've all had a fabulous time in Edinburgh. So thank you for asking me to speak about Southport, which is a coastal town in northwest England, about 20 miles from Liverpool and about 40 miles from Manchester. Jewish families have lived in Southport since the 1850s, but the congregation, the Southport Hebrew Congregation, was founded in 1893. And the current site in Onside Road was 1926. And in fact, this year we're celebrating our centenary celebration, and we are planning a rather nice event in October. The community grew between the 2 world wars, many incomers from Jewish centres across the UK and also from Europe fleeing persecution. And the history of the community is detailed in a book by John Cowell called Philanthropy, Consensus and Broigus, and the latter I'm not going to refer to. The town enjoyed a thriving Jewish community with a cheder, a full-time Rav and a chazan, but in common with many small communities, there has been a shrinkage since the late 1980s. Children have gone off to university and they haven't returned to the town. And people do come and retire, but of course those people are not coming to have children, and we're then not going to grow as much as we would like to do. Nevertheless, we thrive and we have a very friendly, cohesive community. We hold weekly services, and although we don't have a full-time rabbi, we run a rota for each Shabbat and Yom Tov, which I'm responsible for. And I'm delighted to say that this Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, our deputies Sid Braham and Daniel Hirschfield will be officiating at Southport Hebrew Congregation. As far as Jewish life, we do everything that we would expect from a Jewish community. We have kosher food deliveries. We have good relations with the small progressive synagogue, and that was formed in the late 1940s. We're a member of the Merseyside Jewish Representative Council, and we join Liverpool in many activities. The last one being a concert at Prince's Road Shul, which was part of part of Jewish Culture Month. We have a Minyan WhatsApp group, which works very well because in a small community, and there are perhaps more women than men, we do ensure a quorum for services. We have our Minyan each week, and that is very important to keep the community alive and going. So although our numbers are reduced, we have a strong core of dedicated individuals to ensure that the Kehillah runs smoothly and efficiently. And this is so very greatly enhanced by our membership of the United Synagogue. And we've been a constituent member since 2020 and 2021-ish. I'm happy to say that I've been representing the board since 2001, and the board is an integral part of Jewish communal life. We welcomed Phil. This was in 2024, in the aftermath of the murder of the 3 little girls in Southport, and we had a very successful event, a very successful interfaith event, which was subsequent to that dreadful incident. Community relations, we have a weekly email, and we have our Southport Hebrew Congregation communal WhatsApp group. We enjoy the community briefing from the board, and I make sure that our membership is well versed in all that the board does, and they really benefit from all that the presidents and HOs do, and we make sure that they're very well aware of all this. We have Hesed calls and visits to older members. We provide gifts at Rosh Hashanah and Pesach. We have a book club, a coffee club, and the Onside Road Social Committee runs the film nights, which happen several times a year. And of course, we host the annual Holocaust Memorial Day service, which is for the whole of the Sefton Borough and is attended by the various dignitaries. We of course, in Southport, as elsewhere in the UK, we're extremely mindful of security, and we have excellent relations with the local police, with councillors and Prevent. And our MP, Patrick Hurley, who is well known to Louise, is a very fine friend to the Jewish community. The magnificent CST is so vital to Southport and all communities in the country, and we must all support them as they look after us so terribly well. And that leads me to say that we too have weekly pro-Palestinian demonstrations in the town centre. They are peaceful, yet still troubling to see. We have good interfaith relations, and I sit on the Sefton Interfaith Group, and our next meeting will be hosted at Shul at Onside Road. We have an annual interfaith walk, and that too is very well supported across the community. Importantly, we host regular school visits and adult group visits to the shul, and I also visit schools in the local area. And I must mention Anna Silva and Sheila Gilwab, whose efforts in this field are absolutely magnificent. We feel that these visits dispel myths about our religion and our way of life, and education for future generations is so very vital. And we also believe that and have hosted the Jewish Living Experience exhibition, and that plays a vital role in battling anti-Semitism. So we have a happy community, we have a small community, we are cohesive, we are friendly, and we look forward to welcoming you. And all I can say is thank you for your attention today in listening to me.
Thank you very much indeed, Gillian. Really excellent. So last but by no means least, of course, is Edward Green. So over to you, Edward.
Well, I already introduced myself for the Zoom. I'm Edward Green from Edinburgh. Must excuse me, I have a slight stutter. Listening to what I've just heard from Southport, where I've been often, Bournemouth, which I've been often to, and I really enjoy. I feel like I'm at home because Edinburgh is very, very similar. So I'm not going to go over the things that we've heard. They really are pretty standard. We have 1,000 people who have signed the census here in Edinburgh to say they're Jewish. There's 115 members here. There's 60 members of the other group, and so there's 800 Jews in the ether. And what's staggering is that these unaffiliated Jews in Edinburgh, plus I think there must be more than stated, because you seem to meet them often, and we can't seem to attract them, and that's been our major problem. There's the Israeli contingent. They won't join the shul. They might send their children to Cheder, but they won't join the shul. And they might come for Yom, the special day, and they might come for that, but they will not come for Rosh Hashanah. All the things that we do, they won't come for our coffee mornings. And we do, as you say, as you said before, Sheila, we all punch above our weight. We all do far more for the numbers than you would expect. So this shul is a beautiful shul, as you've seen, and we use this room the whole time. It's always being used, and it's busy. It's a centre. It's a social hub, but it's not a synagogue hub. It's a Jewish centre hub, and that's where things have changed, I think. I have one son who was brought up here. He went to school here, and he was one Jew in the school, and he was well educated here. He had a good time. There's no question about that. And my prayer for him was that he would come down to London, he'd find a bride, a Jewish bride, and he'd return to live in Edinburgh, because Edinburgh has offered us such a great life. And that was my major hope for him, and I'm sure it's a major hope for those in Cardiff, in Southport, in Bournemouth. And he's not going to do that. He's found a bride, but he's staying in London. And I'm not heartbroken, but I'm upset for him, because the life here is such a better quality life. The life in Cardiff is better quality. Bournemouth, I've had the great privilege of going to Bournemouth Shul a lot now. I went to the big event when they opened the new shul, which was really beautiful, is really beautiful. And I just feel the provinces have such a lot to offer, and we're just not keeping them here, are we? And that goes for all over Liverpool, other places. It's the same. So I feel saddened by that, but I'm not sure there's an easy fix for that. We too have a WhatsApp group. We have to have a WhatsApp group, otherwise we won't get the numbers for midnight on Friday night and Sunday morning. Shul is fine. We'll always have the number. But we need to work on getting enough people in for those other services. Where I think it's different here, if I may, from other places, we have a political access here that other towns don't enjoy to the same degree. So you saw Ian Murray, you saw how incredibly supportive he is of us. And I think what's amazing here, what I found personally, is that you can approach politicians here and get the response. And you can tell them your problems, and the more one asks, the more one explains, the more support we get. So I think that's a great plus. We would not have got the drum language records off the ground if it wasn't for the Scottish side. Trying to start that in London would have been a completely different matter. And we were very supported here. It really was meant to be an Edinburgh-based thing for Jews and Muslims to live and work in Harmony in the city. It just grew legs. And because people like Ian Murray got involved, then the First Minister wanted to be involved, then the Secretary, the different Cabinet Secretaries, they all wanted to become involved. And because of that, it grew into a Scottish-wide thing, and now it's become a nationwide thing. So it's really interesting that Edinburgh has offered us the support that we would not have got elsewhere. At least I believe we would not have got elsewhere. People may argue on that. We too are going to have the Jewish learning experience. That's later on the year. We're doing that in tandem with the lighting of the Hanukkah, which we do each year. I'm saying that for those who are not here. We do that each year in Parliament. We do it in the city chambers each year, and we have another lighting in the main square of Edinburgh. That's in addition to what goes on here. So we do have great support. The Scottish people are very supportive of Jews, and they really are. And they're good people. And I've never experienced any bad experience from Scottish people. I never tried to hide my Jewishness. In fact, just the opposite. And I've never had anything but full support. Of course, we have the pro-Palestinians in it, and you've heard about all the troubles we have. But that's one issue. But for us mere mortals, it's another issue. And I can say with my hand on my heart that Scots are welcoming, kind, good, and understand our plight. Really, that's all I really wanted to say, except to say thank you for giving us the chance to talk about our locality, and thank you again for coming here and joining us this weekend.
Gillian and Edward, all of you exemplify the very best of the Board of Deputies.
We now move to the section where new deputies are invited to speak. First person, Geoffrey Cohen.
Thank you very much, Acting President. Deputies, for allowing me to speak. I've got a few minutes. Just want to introduce myself. I'm a solicitor specialising in private client work, charity trusts, setting up trusts, succession planning, and all that. I've been practicing since 1986, and hopefully this November I will be fully retiring, which allows me to concentrate on some of the more interesting issues which affects communities. I've been representing Clapton Federation Synagogue. I've been the treasurer of Clapton Synagogue for many years, and thank you. Have also acted as the treasurer of the Burial Society of the Federation of Synagogues for some 10 years. I'm also a qualified rabbi, if that really helps, I don't know. On that. Clapton, as you know, is a very small community, and I feel that it's important. We're an East London community. I think it's very important that we should be represented, and that's why I volunteered this year to replace Professor Dr. Geoffrey Alderman as the Board of Deputies member. My main interest, which I think is important, or sort of the aims which I see, which I hope will help here at the Board of Deputies, there's three issues, I think, which was my main concern. One, of course, is where we've had the whole weekend about, is security. Security in the more general sense of protecting the community, our buildings. We heard about, of course, the Hatzalah that affected quite a lot of Federation buildings in the east end of London, Nelson Street. The ambulances actually took place at our Federation premises. The other area is education in the most broadest sense, to fight the demonization not only of Jews, of Zionism. There's nothing wrong with being a Zionist. Let's get that right. It's an important thing. But I think it's not just getting that message across to the broader community, but I think even within our own community, I think it's very important that we get the educational side across, giving support to students and so on and so forth. And the third area, once again, very broad base, is unity. I believe that we should be, as in the Board of Deputies, everyone should be treated with the, as the late Chief Rabbi said, dignity of difference. We are all different. We come from different backgrounds, but nonetheless, what we should be doing, as once again to quote the late Chief Rabbi, is building a home together. And I think that's what I would like to achieve as a member of the Board of Deputies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jenny Kananoff on Zoom. Jenny.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny, and I'm the new deputy representing Yachad. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself and the organization I represent. So I'm Israeli and now also British. I moved to London with my family over 11 years ago from Israel. In 2020, I began following the growing protest movement in Israel over Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption trial, and I knew I wanted to join the demonstrations. So a few Israeli friends and I decided to bring the protest to London. And that's how we eventually founded We Democracy, a grassroots movement of Israelis in the UK and British Jews supporting Israeli democracy and objecting to the actions of Prime Minister Netanyahu, who we believed was taking Israel in a very dangerous direction. Sadly, we were right. Since Netanyahu got re-elected in 2023, he has formed the most far-right government in Israel's history, known for attacking democratic institutions and fundamental rights and freedoms. A government led by ministers who encourage violence and spread fear, hatred, and division. A government which refuses to take any accountability for the failures that led to October 7th and is open about its plans to annex the West Bank. It was through this work that I first came to know the wonderful team at Yachad. What drew me to the organization was that it refused to accept a false choice between caring about Israel and criticizing the actions of Israel's leaders. Yachad empowers British Jews to support a political resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict because we believe that only a negotiated political solution can bring lasting security for Israel and freedom and dignity for Palestinians. Yachad has a unique ability to show the complexity of the conflict by working closely with Israelis and Palestinians who need the support of allies in the diaspora on issues including democracy, settler violence, and human rights. President Herzog has spoken about the importance of a more engaged Jewish diaspora and the diaspora's role in shaping Israel's future. I was very pleased to see that one of the board's strategic priorities is to stand up for peace and security in Israel and the Middle East. But in today's rather bleak reality, we need to go beyond statements. We need to challenge ourselves and question what actions we need to take, which voices we amplify, and what causes we advocate for or financially support. I look forward to serving as a deputy, getting to know you all better and representing Yachad. I'm always happy to answer questions about Yachad's work or just have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you. And our third speaker is Paul Berwin in person.
Thank you. So I'm Paul Berwin, and I represent the United Hebrew Congregation in Leeds. So that's not the Leeds United Hebrew Congregation. We recently re-affiliated to the board. The origins of the UHC can be traced back 180 years to 1846, but this is all about the future. So we recently proposed and agreed in principle to move towards a three-way amalgamation of the three main Orthodox shuls in Leeds. UHC and then BHH have approved this, and Eitz Chaim are voting this week. The aim is to ensure that we, collectively, are ahead of the narrative. So these are really historic moves. Leeds is the third biggest community in the UK, but nonetheless we're moving with this amalgamation. What we want to do is provide a well-led, well-resourced and fully fit future for the Leeds community, one that can prosper and adapt. We're not interested in decline. The community already has exceptional Jewish welfare, housing, school provision from nursery to high school, diverse groups and offerings, and an Eruv within a dynamic, growing city and city region. Leeds is a great place to live and to live Jewishly. We know what happens if communities don't plan for their future. The future overtakes them, and sometimes catastrophically. I'm a past president of UHC. I've been one of the movers behind the Leeds amalgamation proposal, and I drafted the resolution which all three schools have put or are putting before their members. I also championed the UHC's re-affiliation. Of course, this is a challenging time for UHC Jewry and a time of change and opportunity for the Leeds community, when UHC is also looking for our next senior rabbi, potentially not just for UHC, but for the whole community. So this is a time when we believe that being closely involved with the wider community ought to be beneficial, and we can, and I hope will, bring our own contribution. So we do this on a trial basis, though. We'll be judging and measuring the benefit we can bring and what we can achieve. And our members will be scrutinising me as their delegate, our under-35 observer, Adam Wine, who can't be here today, and you. The board's president strongly pitched our re-affiliation, but Yorkshire Jews are a difficult crowd to please. We sometimes think anything south of Sheffield is a bit borderline and suspect. We know the Scots are hard, apart from Edinburgh, of course. And for the noisy neighbours over the hills from us to the west of Leeds, we have no words. I don't mean Liverpool and Southport, I mean that other place. So we're not here for the politics, though individually we may have political positions, and I've already had deputies suggesting what those should be, but we'll ignore those. We look forward to the year ahead, to listening, learning, and contributing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of our speakers. I think they were all very good and very interesting contributions. Look forward to hearing from you again, all of you again. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for being in this meeting, whether in presence in this room, in person, or online. I thank the board staff for all the work that they've done, the audio-visual staff, all the technical staff, and Eddie and Henry in this room, and Leo on link, because it needs everybody doing all that to achieve the results we're getting, and I thank you all very much. I'd now like to hand over to Adrian, Acting President, for concluding remarks. Adrian.
Thank you very much. So whilst I've been sitting here, I've been getting a few WhatsApps asking me, well, when's the coup happening? But I've had to disappoint them. And it's been, as I said earlier, it's been a real privilege and a joy to have stepped in whilst Phil has taken well-deserved parental leave to help Francis. But we do very much look forward to seeing him back in the saddle tomorrow morning, as Ben says, chained to his chair whilst he deals with some of the stuff which has accumulated and is there waiting for his attention. I did want to mention one thing. One of our deputies last night did fall ill, Lawrence Davidson, and just so that we should include him in our prayers for Refuah Shalema. His Hebrew name is Aryeh ben Devora, if you can remember that. Aryeh ben Devora. Lawrence Davidson.
Lawrence is on
Zoom. Okay.
Yeah, wish you well, Lawrence.
Obviously, the best road to recovery is to be on Zoom during a plenary. It features highly in alternative medical practice. We are drawing things to a conclusion. It looks like we can actually give you 5 minutes of your time back, which is always a plus.
Mincha.
My learned friend to my far left, religiously, not politically,
absolutely,
has reminded me that there will be a mincha service. Actually, that does remind me that our beloved chief executive has your site for his father today. So we wish him Chaim Aruchim, and if we could all help him with a million, I think that would be gratefully received. So let's do that after the plenary. Thank you again. Thank you, Edinburgh. Thank you, Edward, for an amazing weekend for those who have been able to attend. Thank you, everyone who has joined us online. It's the hybrid model has served us all very well, and I look forward to participating in the plenary back under previous management in September. I do want to conclude in a culturally appropriate way. So what I'd like us all to do is to stand and to join in the first stanza and chorus of Auld Lang Syne. Right. So for those who don't know, you have to trust me. Mime. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot as Auld Lang Syne? For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet, for the sake of Auld Lang Syne.
Sure.